we've covered the history of biotechnology and the knowledge and skills which allowed its emergence, and so now I'd like to focus on the first application. In 1973, Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer developed methods to splice genes and express foreign proteins in bacteria. Essentially, you could take a gene out of any living organism, introduce it into bacteria, and then make large quantities of that protein in bacteria. Boyer partnered up with Robert Swanson, a venture capitalist, to form Genentech, and they decided that for their first product, they would target insulin. The reason why they targeted insulin is because there was already a very large market for insulin. People knew what the drug was, they knew how it worked, but there were shortages, as I mentioned before. It took 50 pigs to produce enough insulin for one patient for 1 year, and sometimes that insulin wasn't sufficient. Sometimes patients would reject it, there would be disease concerns, there'd be temporary shortages, and so Genentech felt that if they could find a new way to produce insulin, they could alleviate the shortages, alleviate the concerns over rejection, and enter a very, very large market which already knew that this was the product which they needed. They started off with proof of principle production of a neurotransmitter and then produced recombinant human insulin in bacteria. It was the first recombinant drug ever approved by the FDA. Following that, they capitalized on positive market sentiment and they raised $35 million in an initial public offering. Importantly, they were able to develop recombinant human insulin by licensing the manufacturing and distribution rights to Eli Lilly, who were the dominant supplier of beef and pig insulin at the time. And so they gave away a good share of the proceeds from insulin sales in order to be able to produce insulin, but then later on were able to use that to become the first biotechnology company to market their own product. They produced human growth hormone, which was previously only available by harvesting the pituitary glands from deceased human organ donors, and once again resolved a drug shortage problem. Since then, they've added many new products. They were later bought by Roche Pharmaceuticals, resold by Roche Pharmaceuticals, and then repurchased by Roche Pharmaceuticals. It's also important to recognize that Genentech was not the first. Cedus, in fact, was the first biotechnology company. They were founded in 1971, and they were initially focused on using automated methods to screen for microorganisms with industrial applications. And so you see here there's a bit of a difference. Genentech went right in for drug applications, Cedus went for industrial applications. There's a reason for this. Cedus was founded before gene splicing was even invented, so they couldn't have used those sorts of methods. Importantly, they also developed the Nobel Prize-winning polymerase chain reaction technology, but they weren't able to maintain their dependence, and in the end they were acquired by Chiron.